It's day 11 here at Ironwood with no campers, and it's kind of an unusual, odd time here to have no campers at camp because of the coronavirus. I want to go back to December and tell you a little bit of story and just kind of share what's going on here at camp. Back in December, we had just finished a year where financially we were really tight. There was a couple of things that had happened in the budget that just made it where we were going to have a tight budget. I was sharing with our staff team, with our team directors out of 1 Kings chapter 17, the story about Elijah and how God had provided for him. In that chapter, there's a section that it talks about how God told him to go to the brook Cherith, and there it wasn't going to rain for a long time. And sure enough, he follows what God tells him to do. And then the ravens come and feed him. I was telling our staff guys and team, I was saying, look, God can provide in ways that are unusual, kind of odd and different. In the middle of all those budget meetings, we had a guy show up at the office, a couple of guys, and they had some questions about being able to use the property. They wanted to launch some big hot air balloons. And we thought, okay, they needed about an acre of land. They had a whole bunch of trucks and stuff. And I was talking to Mr. Wayne, and we were talking about where they could possibly do this. And we ended up with a 1 acre way out by $1. And we showed them this spot, and they said, oh, this is perfect. And they launched a whole bunch of balloons. And as they were done, they're like, man, of the 120 locations that we have, this is like the perfect one. I understand you guys are a nonprofit. Would you mind if we sent you a donation? And of course, Mr. Wayne is like, sure, that'll be great. And we thought that was cool. Maybe this was a way that God was providing for the ministry. We continued to go through our budget meetings. At the end of December, we made a budget that was extremely conservative because we'd had a year where we didn't do nearly as well. So as we finished up that budget and we received that envelope from that company, in that was a check for $2,500, and we were like, this is unbelievable. When I looked though up in the corner of that check, in the corner of that spot, this company, the name was Raven. It was just like, you gotta be kidding. God has actually given us a company called Raven to provide for part of the needs that we had at that time. We told the story to all of our staff, and it's one of those things that you kind of shake your head at the way God can provide and what he can do. Well, through January and February, again, a very conservative budget. We were really tight. We projected lower numbers. We wanted to make sure we hit this budget. We were doing better than ever. And I noticed that several of our staff had received gifts and things that had happened, and I'd heard different stories of the way that God had provided, and we talked about all the ravens that God had provided. And one day there in February, into February, we said, I just want to hear about all the ravens that have been provided. And we handed out all these little leather things to each staff member and say, if you've gotten something unexpectedly, if something has been provided for you that was not part of what you would normally get, just write the number down. And I'm curious about how many ravens have been provided. Well, the staff turned everything in, and we were covering a time span of about 70 days, and they turned in 71 of these little leather things. And as I would look through them, I would look and see what had been provided. There's $200, there's couches, there's $225, there's $60, there's $500, there's $300, $400, $700, a $5,000 gift, $250, $100, $400. As I look through this, I'm just amazed at what God has done. He's done some $63, $20, $250, $100, $30. Whew. I just kind of stepped back, and I'm like, over the last 70 days, 71 of these ravens total $50,000. I'm like, wow, God can provide. We went through all of that, and we decided that we would kind of remember that. And we put together this little thing right here, and some of the staff call it the creepy ravens. But I wanted us to remember that God had provided in amazing ways, in ways that we couldn't expect for our team. You know that story about Elijah that he's there for 3.5 years there at the brook Cherith. And eventually that brook dries up. So in some ways, the ravens represent the things that we get that we don't expect. But then there are the brook Cherith. I expect every morning to be able to go down to the brook Cherith, get some water. That's where water comes from, the brook. Like that's normally the way God would provide. And there's no doubt in my mind, Elijah's kind of sitting there and he's watching the brook Cherith get lower and lower and lower. And he knows that this thing is starting to dry up. The brook Cherith dried up. And then God sent Elijah to the next thing. I think one of the most amazing parts of that verse is recognizing that the brook dried up, and then God gave him his next step. Here at Ironwood, the normal ways that we have revenue, the normal ways that we have campers, the normal way that we have ministry has dried up. We're actually in a spot right now where we haven't had campers. Campers are the normal thing that we welcome them, they arrive, they pay their camp fee, we get food, we have activities, we share the Word of God, hearts are challenged, decisions are made, and we haven't had that for the last 11 days. In fact, I can imagine how Elijah felt when the brook stopped flowing and there were just these puddles left. Just these little puddles of water, and there was no new water to fill them up. And Elijah was able to look and say, okay, I think that puddle is only going to last 5 days or 7 days or whatever it might be. That's kind of where we're at here at Ironwood. The campers are no longer coming. The puddle of money that is left to pay the bills is shrinking. But you know what? We have a God who can provide when the brook dries up and can provide in ways that are unique, in ways that we would never expect. Here at Ironwood, we do not know what the future will hold. We do not know what is next. We can't even imagine. We couldn't even like guess. I don't want to. I know that God has given us today, and He has provided for today. And we are going to live today to His honor and to His glory. On our website, our homepage, there is a link to our coronavirus relief fund. That link right there just allows somebody to give towards the regular expenses, kind of adding to the pool, if you will. I don't know if that's one of the ways that God will provide. I don't know how He will work these next few days. But I want to let you know that here at Ironwood, our team is ready to go whenever this ends, whenever we're able to gather together, whenever that bus can come with a whole bunch of young people, whenever you can make an announcement and say, we're all getting together and we're going to camp. We'll be ready for that time if the Lord wills. And we are looking forward to the opportunity to serve. Now, how will all of it work in the meantime? I really don't know. But I do know that I have a God who knows. I know that I have a God who is in control. I have a God who's got a plan for everything that's going to happen. So I rest. I be still. I'm okay with whatever this adventure may be, because I serve a God who is amazing, who provided for Elijah through ravens and another step after the brook Cherith dried up. That God is my God. He can provide for me. I thank you for your prayers for this ministry. I want you to know that we are praying for you. We're praying for the pastors, the schools, the churches, all the campers that are out there. I cannot imagine all the unique things and changes of life and adjustments that are having to be made. We've made some major adjustments. We're beginning to try to figure out some big things of what's next. But we can trust a God daily for the needs that we have, knowing that He can provide ravens and He can provide the next step after the brook Cherith dries up.